Actions speak louder than the words. Sometimes to gain trust of others, you have to prove it by your action. This is something the Yinlin Companion Story Quest was trying to accomplish or showcase, and there's also more to it than what meets the eye. But there's also another issue that we have to talk about. There's people in the Wuthering Waves community that actually dislike the story for Yinlin. So why is the community dissatisfied with the Yinlin Story Quest? But before we answer the question to why people are dissatisfied, first let's understand the story quest before we make any judgments. There will be 3 topics we will break down in this video: why puppets or dolls play a major role in the story, the backstory of Yellen and why it's important, and lastly, if the story is terrible as everybody say it is. It's easier to break everything down into topics to see why people may have disliked the story, or to see if everyone is just overreacting and the story isn't that bad as we think. When we first meet Yellen, she mentions the organization called Dissatisfied. They're making puppets or dolls that could replicate or emulate the personality and appearance of a deceased person. This is so-called an attempt at resurrection, and we first see this at hand with Leron's daughter who died in a tragic accident, but the story doesn't mention what accident she sadly passed away from. The scary part about this is on multiple occasions we could also see Leron's daughter being very aware of the current situation. This is rather sad or scary at the same time, because imagine being brought back to life but that somebody else will. So how do puppets work from our understanding? They don't have any freedom, and you could also command them as well. We see this happen when Yellen commands a puppet version of Leron's daughter, as it happens to follow Yellen commands. So this tells us that they could probably be used for evil means, and this could also explain why maybe the Fastidious are trying to make a deal with the Dissatisfied for evil means. Another issue about puppets is long exposure to puppets can lead to a violent breakdown, which is known as overclocking in Wuthering Waves. But not everybody is affected by puppets, even if they spend a long amount of time near them. But now the question remains, who is in charge of making these dolls? The person behind it is the doll maker, and he is the exact reason why the dolls are able to have a personality and even an appearance is because of the doll maker ability to tap into people's mindsets and his forte, judging from the information we have gathered from Yellen. So now we completely understand why puppets or dolls are the main focus of this entire Yellen story quest, and from our judgment and knowledge of the story. But how does any of this matter to Yellen? When we first meet Yellen, we're just complete strangers. We have no reason to trust Yellen, nor Yellen has any reason to trust us. The only time we start to gain Yellen trust is when Rover begins to follow Yellen action, and Yellen puts trust into Rover to follow after Leron. So by following Yellen commands and Yellen starting to see we really don't belong to any group is when she starts to think maybe she could put trust into the Rover after all. But what reason does Yellen need our trust for? This is a simple answer if you followed along the story quest: to bring down the doll maker. We have seen how long exposure can cause direct chaos if you're spending too much time near them, and we've seen how we could even control them at command, or at least Yellen was able to. So if we judge the situation, does that mean the doll maker planned for something huge as world domination? Well, that could be the case, or so I wish it was the case. The doll maker's real goal was to just bring Yellen parents back by any means necessary, and doing anything just to meet his goal. After all, Yellen parents passed away because they was betrayed by a group of people, but deep down Yellen knows her own parents wouldn't consent to being brought back to life. And Yellen follows her parents' belief of playing hero and doing what's right, and the doll maker decided to raise Yellen on his own, but perhaps held regret to what happened to Yellen's parents and wanted to do anything best for her. So now we finally figure out Yellen's mission and goal of the story, including why she's the way she is, and this included the doll maker goal as well, to bring Yellen's parents back. As for the Fastidious, I tried to do more research of their own goal of why they wanted to do the deal themselves, but like I said, I only think they're just in it to outplay the doll maker and have the doll themselves for other reasons, which makes the most sense. But the issue is both Yellen and now the doll maker don't really have any memory of Yellen's parents. So my guess is he's using everything in his power, including the people he recruited to the society and working with the Fastidious to do anything to get Yellen's parents back. To throw my own 2 cents into the situation, I think the story tried their best to make the doll maker as evil as possible, just so us player or the reader could actually hate the doll maker. But instead, I think it's done in the exact opposite, and it's kind of hard to hate the doll maker when his true intent is just to bring back Yellen's parents. Plus, how can you hate a guy with a sick mask? No, but seriously, maybe besides the resurrection of turning people into dolls, the reason to hate the doll maker feels a bit weird in a sense, or that's just my own opinion. So in summary, after helping Yellen with her undercover mission, the goal of the story was to prevent the doll maker revival of Yellen's parents. Now, there's other things that was happening on the side, of course, like the overclocking of being near dolls and puppets, so the shutdown of the organization was the plan as well. So after learning the importance of the story and what's going on, why do people dislike the story? The first reason I've seen why people dislike is the writing. Remember when I said actions matter than words at the start of the video? People didn't like how often Rover was betrayed by multiple times by Yellen, but still continued to try to work with Yellen to the end. I think the community easily forgotten that Rover decided to play along themselves with Yellen gang just to get down at the bottom of what's going on. Otherwise, if Rover decided to bring any justice towards Yellen as far as arresting her, then Rover would have never figured out the situation, nor Rover would have ever figured out if they could ever get their long lost memories back from the doll maker himself. So I think it's safe to say while maybe the execution of everything isn't the best, it's still pretty good if you kept up with what's happening in the story. And plus, Rover and Yellen both gains each other trust as the story progresses. The second reason why people hated the story was either the story was all over the place or the pacing fell off. This is something that I could somewhat agree with, especially with how short the story is, since we don't dive deeper to the fastidious true intention with the puppets and their end goal, and why tacit discourse are easily attracted to some of these puppets. While I can agree that Kuro Gang should probably up their writing game when it comes to the story, I also do believe that the story wasn't that bad as well, and I was at least able to understand what was going on and enjoyed the story quite a bit with the lore of Yellen and the doll maker goal, even though it wasn't entirely the best writing in the world. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Did you guys happen to enjoy the story, and do you think everyone is just overreacting the situation, or do you believe Kuro Games need to do better with the story? Anyways, if you want to discuss more lore or talk about Wuthering Waves, come join my Discord server as we're close to 1,000 members in the server. Anyways, thank you guys for making it this far into the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.